Welcome to the 12th lecture in the series Introduction to New Testament Textual Criticism. Let's begin with prayer. Heavenly Father, arm us today with the mind of Christ. Strengthen our resolve to spend our time not in the distractions of the world, but as those who have been called out of the world, that in all things you may be glorified, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Picking up from where we left off in the previous lecture, after the release of the Revised Version of 1881, it did not replace the King James Version, but among scholars, the Greek New Testament, released by Westcott and Hort in the same year, replaced the Textus Receptus. Why? The main reason for this was that most scholars regarded the model that was proposed by Westcott and Hort for the historical development of the text as persuasive. Previous researchers had separated manuscripts and other witnesses into groups, according to readings they had in common, that were not shared by the other two groups. Earlier researchers suspected that each group could be traced to a recension, and this generally had the effect of making the relative quantities of manuscripts less important than the internal evidence, as analyzed using Griesbach's canons or text-critical guidelines. So even if reading A was attested in only a very small number of early manuscripts, if a reasonable case could be made that it accounted for reading B that was supported by 20 times as many manuscripts, reading A was regarded as more likely to be original. Internal considerations, the intrinsic quality of readings, relative to the quality of its rivals, became the decisive factor in textual contests. Now that was part of Westcott and Hort's approach, but that was nothing new. What was new was the idea that the Byzantine text, represented by between 85% and 95% of the Greek New Testament manuscripts, depending on what part of the New Testament one is looking at, sometimes 99%, was the result of a deliberate editorial effort to produce a new form of the text, undertaken by someone in the late 200s, possibly Lucian of Antioch, using as his sources manuscripts that had forms of the text that were either Western or Alexandrian. F.J.A. Hort, on behalf of himself and F.J. Westcott, wrote a detailed introduction to B.F. Westcott wrote a detailed introduction to the Greek New Testament that attempted to justify the conclusion. There were three basic parts of Hort's case. Part 1 involved conflations. Hort proposed that the Byzantine text contained readings that were basically combinations of shorter readings found in the Alexandrian and Western forms of the text. Hort listed 4 textual contests in Mark, at Mark 6:33, Mark 8:26, Mark 9:38, and Mark 9:49, and 4 textual contests in Luke, at Luke 9:10, Luke 9:54, Luke 12:18, and Luke 24:53. And argued that in each of these 8 passages, the longer Byzantine reading is a combination of the shorter reading found in the Western and Alexandrian forms of the text. Based on that evidence, Hort argued that the Byzantine form is not just later than the other 2 forms of the text, but dependent upon them. Hort mentioned in his introduction, to the best of our belief, the relations thus provisionally traced are never inverted, that is, neither the Alexandrian text nor the Western text has any readings that look like they are the result of a combination of the Byzantine reading and a reading from another form of the text. Part 2 involved patristic writings. Hort proposed that when patristic writings are examined, no patristic writer from before the 300s uses Byzantine readings that are not shared by either the Alexandrian or Western forms of the text. When the quotations made by Irenaeus, Clement of Alexandria, Tertullian, Cyprian, Novatian, Methodius, and in the early 300s, Eusebius of Caesarea are examined, none of them contain distinctly Byzantine forms of the text. They only agree with the Byzantine readings when the Byzantine reading agrees with either the Western or Alexandrian reading. And before the middle of the 3rd century, at the very earliest, Hort wrote, we have no historical signs of the existence of readings, conflate or other, that are marked as distinctly Syrian. And now Syrian was Hort's term for the Byzantine text. Part 3 involved the relative quality of readings. Hort proposed that when Byzantine readings are compared to their rivals, internal considerations consistently point away from the Byzantine reading and toward an alternative as being the original reading. Thus, Hort argued that evidence from Conflations, evidence from Patristic evidence, and evidence from internal considerations all point toward the same hypothesis, that the Byzantine text did not develop independently from Alexandrian and Western forms, but was deliberately created from those forms by an editor, probably Lucian of Antioch, in the late 200s. From that premise, Hort argued, it follows that all distinctively Syrian readings may be set aside at once as certainly originating after the middle of the 3rd century, and therefore, as far as transmission is concerned, corruptions of the apostolic text. I'm quoting from Hort's introduction, page 117. Hort emphasized this point. All distinctly Syrian readings must be at once rejected, he said. With all distinctly Byzantine readings thus disqualified from being original on the grounds that they did not exist until the Byzantine text was created in the late 200s, the larger textual contest became a contest between the Alexandrian text and the Western text. Now, Hort argued that the Western text was manifestly inaccurate and was habitually expanded and paraphrased, while the Alexandrian text was precise and generally unembellished. Although the Western text occupied much more territory in the 2nd and 3rd centuries, the Alexandrian text, according to Hort, was intrinsically superior. Furthermore, Hort argued that the superior representatives of this superior text, Codex Vaticanus and Codex Sinaiticus, echoed a shared ancestor, which cannot be a close ancestor like a father or a grandfather. They simply had too many disagreements between themselves for that. But where they agree, they must both be echoing a very ancient ancestor, probably from the 2nd century, and thus readings shared by Vaticanus and Sinaiticus were assigned special importance. However, there was one major exception to Hort's general favor toward the Alexandrian text over the Western text, and here it's a good idea to slow down and criticize some of Hort's terminology. He called the ancestral text of Vaticanus and Sinaiticus the neutral text, which is a loaded term. With that in mind, Hort gave a special weight to the Western text when it did the opposite of what it usually did. That is, the Western text was typically more embellished than the Alexandrian text. But when the Western text was plain and undecorated, Hort was willing to grant that at some of those points, especially in Luke 24, the Western reading was original. At those points, where the reading in the neutral text was longer, he did not want to refer to neutral interpolations, because that's just silly. It'd be like saying original corruptions. So instead, he invented the term Western non-interpolations. He referred to a series of shorter Western readings. Now, except for these Western non-interpolations, the compilation produced by Westcott and Hort was almost entirely Alexandrian. Although some of the nomenclature used by Hort, such as the neutral text and Western non-interpolations, was immediately or almost immediately seen as problematic, the idea that the Byzantine text was dependent upon the Alexandrian and Western forms of the text was widely received with favor. Not everyone agreed. Frederick Scrivener was a scholar who had been on the translation committee of the Revised Version, and who composed an introduction to New Testament textual criticism that remains valuable to this day. Scrivener considered Hort's case to be far from secure. And John Burgon, who had written a detailed defense of Mark 16:9-20 in 1891, made a detailed protest against Westcott and Hort's theory of the Lucianic revision in 1882 in a detailed essay which constitutes part of the book The Revision Revised. In the 1880s and 1890s, while some scholars regarded Hort's introduction as a masterpiece that brought the field of New Testament textual criticism into a new era, others were not convinced that multitudes of changes to the text in the New Testament were justified, especially since some of the same scholars who had made the Revised Version had assured their readers in the 1850s that errors in the Authorized Version are very slight and few in comparison of its many and great excellences. Well, the base text of the Revised Version did not correspond exactly to the text of Westcott and Hort, but its changes were anything but very slight and few. Depending on which edition of the Textus Receptus is used as the basis of comparison, there are about 5,600 differences between the Textus Receptus and the compilation made by Westcott and Hort, 3,600 of which impact translation. It is extremely difficult to look at what some of the revisers were saying in the 1850s and the base text of what they helped produce in 1881 and conclude that they were consistent. Now, Westcott and Hort were not the only scholars working on a compilation of the Greek New Testament in the late 1800s. In 1898, in Germany, a researcher named Eberhard Nestle produced a Greek New Testament that was a sort of combination of three other recently compiled editions of the Greek New Testament made by other textual critics, specifically Tischendorf's 8th edition, a Westcott and Hort's edition, and an edition by Richard Francis Weymouth. Nestle also used a compilation made by Bernhard Weiss, which within a few years replaced Weymouth's compilation. Nestle wrote a brief article in the Expository Times, an influential journal, that was basically an invitation to the British and Foreign Bible Society to distribute his compilation instead of the Textus Receptus. Now, at about the same time, two things happened which, although they are often seen as minor events or footnotes, they had lasting significance. These two crucial small events were the 1897 Oxford debate on New Testament textual criticism and F.C. Burkitt's 1901 analysis of the Gospels text used by Ephrem Cyrus. John Burgon died in 1888, and Fintan John Anthony Hort died in 1892, without any direct head-to-head debate occurring between them. Hort and Westcott both seem content not to address Burgon's protests against their work, except for rather brief, dismissive remarks. Burgon's de facto successor was Edward Miller, and in 1897, Miller and some other scholars squared off in a debate at New College at the University of Oxford against some proponents of Hort's text and of the model of the Lucianic Recension on which it was based. This brief debate transpired on May the 6th, 1897. The two main participants were Edward Miller and William Sanday, the Lady Margaret Professor at Oxford. Now, in that debate, Sanday, somewhat surprisingly, made several concessions to Miller. When Miller protested that Westcott and Hort put too much weight on agreements of Vaticanus and Sinaiticus, Sanday basically agreed, saying, "I can for myself go with Mr. Miller to a certain extent," and thinking that Dr. Westcott and Dr. Hort have pressed their preference for these manuscripts rather too far. And when Miller argued that Hort seemed to adopt readings merely because they were the readings of Sinaiticus, merely because they were the readings of Vaticanus, Sanday granted that Hort had made some arbitrary assumptions, stating, "It is, I think, not a safe inference that because a manuscript is right in 9 cases out of 10, therefore it will be right in the 10th. Sanday even volunteered the claim that the traditional text, the text that Miller was defending, is no doubt to be found to a considerable extent in the writings of Gregory Nazianzus and Gregory of Nyssa. Now, Gregory Nazianzus lived in 329 through 390, and Gregory of Nyssa from 335 to 395. Now, practically the same point had been granted by Hort, but this is often minimized by those who want to frame the Byzantine text as if it's something medieval. It might be helpful to recollect the claim in Hort's own words. Here it is. "The fundamental text of late extant Greek manuscripts generally is beyond all question identical with the dominant Antiochian or Greco-Syrian text of the second half of the 4th century. To put that another way, generally speaking, the text of the medieval minuscules is the Greek text that was in use in 350 through 400. Again, I'm quoting from Hort. When Miller argued that conflations from two Gospels are simply not nearly enough to build a theoretical revision of the entire New Testament, Sanday conceded, "I am prepared to admit for myself that the conflations are not conclusive proof of the rightness of Dr. Hort's theory. They could only belong to the region of hypothesis. It is all hypothesis." Now, after this frank admission, the debate went in a new direction as Syriac specialists spoke up. Some of them apparently took offense at a phrase that Sanday had used to describe the Peshitta. He had called it the sheet anchor of Mr. Miller's theory. Now, a sheet anchor is an anchor of last resort, seldom used except in emergencies. And the idea is that defenders of the Byzantine text tended to point to the Peshitta for support, but did not use it frequently. And for Syriac specialists, calling the Peshitta a sheet answer probably seemed dismissive, and the debate began to orbit the Peshitta. Now, following that, Miller only had time to make a few brief remarks before dinner time arrived, and the debate concluded. Now, at first glance, it might seem like the debate took a detour, but the focus on the Peshitta was a logical step. For if the Peshitta was translated before the year 200, as Westcott himself had thought in the 1850s, then a mainly Byzantine Greek text of its contents had to be just as early to be the Peshitta's base text. And then Hort's approach becomes impossible. And if the Peshitta is a translation made around 300, this would still make Hort's approach rather unlikely, inasmuch as the novel Byzantine text would have to somehow suddenly and silently be favored over whatever text had previously been in use in the ancient churches of Syria. Now, one of the Syriac specialists who supported Hort's position argued that the uniformity of the text of the earliest copies of the Peshitta implies that their source could not have been very remote. Was this really true? Closer study of the early Syriac text was needed. Now, Miller, in his closing remarks, mentioned that the 22-book canon of the Peshitta New Testament implied that it was ancient, and he alluded to the Syriac writings of Ephrem and Ephrem Cyrus as ancient evidence for the Peshitta. Was this really true? Closer study of the writings of Ephrem and Ephrem was needed. One afternoon of vigorous discussion had isolated and identified the questions that still needed to be answered. That brings us to the second crucial small event. In 1901, a Cambridge scholar named F.C. Burkitt published a study of the Gospels-quotations in the writings of Ephrem Cyrus. After filtering out Ephrem Cyrus's genuine works from compositions erroneously attributed to him, Burkitt concluded that out of 48 Gospels passages, only 8 of them are capable of implying dependence upon the Peshitta, and all 8 are more likely quotations of passages where an earlier form of the text, used by Ephrem, simply happens to agree with the Peshitta. In addition, Burkitt extrapolated that the earlier forms of the Gospels used by Ephrem was neither the Sinaitic Syriac nor the Curetoniac Syriac, but was the Diatessaron. This was a pivotal point. It indicated that the production date of the Peshitta was not in the 2nd century or early in the 300s, but sometime later than Ephrem Cyrus, who died in 373. Burkitt proposed that without support for the Peshitta from Ephrem Cyrus, we are free to bring down the date of its appearance to a later period, to the 5th century. He proceeded to propose that the Peshitta is the version that was attributed to Rabbula, the influential bishop of Edessa, in 411 through 475. Now, Hort had already granted that the Byzantine text was in circulation in the 300s, so assigning the production of the Peshitta to the early 400s was no obstacle for Hort's theory. Once a date in the early 400s was assigned to the Peshitta, the Byzantine text appeared to no longer have a historical anchor in the 2nd century. In 1904, after Burkitt's analysis of Ephrem's Gospels-quotations had been published, the British and Foreign Bible Society began to distribute Nestle's compilation of the Greek New Testament. Now, several other things happened at about the same time. In 1890, Hermann Hasker published a detailed study of the text of Gospels manuscript 700, known at the time as Ministerial 604. Hasker demonstrated QED that early readings can be preserved in later manuscripts. Ministerial 700 deviates from the Textus Receptus in 2,724 places. In 1893, J. Rendell Harris published 4 lectures on the Western text, which had the effect of saying, "Not so fast," to the dismissal of the Western text. J. Rendell Harris was also instrumental in the discovery of several previously undocumented manuscripts. In 1902, Cursor Blake published Codex I and its allies, which focused on the Gospels text in Family 1. And Lake's findings indicated that the map that Hort had drawn had some blank spaces that were yet to be filled in. In addition, the Arabic Diatessaron was published in an accessible format in 1888. The Sinaitic Syriac was discovered and translated. Codex Macedonianus was made public in 1901. Codex Washingtonianus was discovered in 1906. All these things happened in the 30-year period that followed the publication of the Westcott-Hort compilation in 1881. And yet, the text itself was not significantly changed. Part of the reason for that is that some scholars had hopes that another researcher, Hermann von Soden, was going to produce a definitive edition of the Greek New Testament with a massive textual apparatus. But when von Soden's text was released in the early 1900s, it was almost immediately rejected. Scholars criticized three negative aspects of von Soden's work. First, he had created a problematic new method of identifying manuscripts. Second, his apparatus was very badly inaccurate. And third, von Soden made unlikely theories about the extent of the impact of Marcion and Tatian upon the text in the 2nd century. So although textual critics were grateful for the massive accumulation of data that von Soden had provided, they basically kept the Westcott-Hort text, slightly modified by input from other compilers. The theory of the Lucianic Recension had been rendered somewhat more plausible by Burkitt's removal of the objection of an early production date for the Peshitta. Several textual critics in this period wrote new introductions to the field of New Testament textual criticism. Taking the place of Scrivener's plain introduction were new textual introductions written by Caspar René Gregory, by Eberhard Nestle, by F.C. Kenyon, and by Alexander Souter, and a brief handbook which was written by Cursor Blake. But no matter whose name was on the outside of the new introductions, Hort's basic approach was on the inside. And at the core of that approach were two ideas. First, that the Byzantine text should be set aside and almost entirely replaced with the readings from the Alexandrian text. And second, that the best Greek representatives of the Alexandrian text, by far, were Codex Vaticanus and Codex Sinaiticus. Now, the pro-Byzantine school of thought that had been upheld by Scrivener and Burgon and Miller was not intent on producing new English versions or new revisions. Burgon had written, an authoritative revision of the Greek text will have to precede any future revision of the English of the New Testament, and for such an undertaking the time has not yet come. Instead of proposing a new revision or a new version, Burgon had proposed new preparation. This inexact quotation may give some idea of what he had in mind. Let a generation of students give themselves entirely up to this branch of sacred science. Let 500 more copies of the Gospels, Acts, and Epistles be diligently collated. Let at least 100 of the ancient lectionaries be very exactly collated also. Let the most important of the ancient versions be edited afresh. Above all, let the fathers, that is, the patristic writers, be called upon to give up their precious secrets. Let the manuscripts of their writings be inspected and indexed. Only so will it ever be possible to obtain a Greek text on which absolute reliance may be placed, which may serve as the basis for a satisfactory revision of our authorized version. This long-term strategy, waiting patiently while evidence was accumulated that could facilitate a definitive and better revision, meant that in the short term, scholars would settle for the Greek text as is. For those who rejected Hort's approach, the practical thing to do, at least until the resources necessary to proceed with the revision were in place, was to continue to use the Textus Receptus with an awareness of its strengths and weaknesses. This was considered an imperfect option, but still much better than abandoning the traditional text because of a theory for which it was very difficult to find historical support. Meanwhile, the generation of scholars who inherited Hort's introduction reframed Hort's hypothesis as if it were a demonstrable fact. Writers such as C.R. Gregory and Alexander Souter were not as dogmatic about the were not dogmatic about the identity of the person who made the Byzantine text, but they treated the existence of a reviser who produced the Byzantine text as a fact. That continued to be the normal treatment of Hort's theory of the Lucianic Recension throughout the rest of the 1900s, all the way up to the 1990s. This is seen in the third edition of Bruce Metzger's handbook, The Text of the New Testament. In his third edition, in 1992, Metzger wrote on page 212, "The reason that justifies one in discarding the Koine type of text," now here, Koine is another name for Byzantine, "is that it is based on the recension prepared near the close of the 3rd century by Lucian of Antioch or some of his associates, who deliberately combined elements from earlier types of text." In the 4th edition, edited by Bart Ehrman in 2005, this sentence was changed. It now reads, "The reason that one is justified in discarding the Koine is that it is a later text type, formed on the basis of earlier types." The initial claim has changed from positing a recension to a formation, and there are good reasons for this change. In the 1900s, researchers and excavators in Egypt discovered some important early witnesses, papyrus manuscripts, older than Vaticanus and Sinaiticus. Some readings in these papyri posed significant problems for Hort's theory of the Lucianic Recension. God willing, in a future lecture, we will take a closer look at some of the new evidence that indicated that Hort had oversimplified the historical development of the Byzantine text. In closing, please read the 1897 Oxford Debate on New Testament Textual Criticism, available online in several venues, and Appendix D, Conflation or Confusion, in Wilbur Pickering's book, The Identity of the New Testament Text, online at revisedstandard.net in the Textual Criticism section, and at walkinhiscommandments.com/pickering10.htm, and my 2-part essay, Conflations, at the blog thetextofthegospels.com. Thank you.